This month on Kill Tony was a total mixed bag. We had two of possibly the worst guests of all time, and we had two guests on that were probably the definition of mid. However, we have a favorite reoccurring character that saves what was possibly the worst arena show in Kill Tony history, and we have somebody who may be in the running for guest of the year. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's go over every single panelist in the month of June and rank them from worst to best. Coming in tied for dead last, I have Cristina, Marani, and David Lucas. Both of them were guests on episode number 723, and we were in for what would have been one of the worst episodes of Kill Tony in recent memory until Timmy No Breaks came on the stage and provided what was a signature Kill Tony moment to kind of save the episode overall. But David Lucas showed why he's one of the most hated comedians in the art form right now. A guy came up on stage and told a story about how him and David basically got too drunk and the guy crashed his car. Although David allegedly claims he wasn't drunk during the incident, these are still the people that David Lucas associates himself with. The guy also referenced the fact that they did go out to eat and he thought that David Lucas was going to pay for the meal, and why wouldn't he? He's obviously the more successful of the group that he was hanging out with. However, he ended up not paying for it. Not sure if this was a bit or not, but it is something the guy said on stage, and Tony claps back with a joke saying, "Welcome to hanging out with David Lucas." And of course, both these guys known to roast each other. That's their whole shtick. But Tony, when he said this, did kind of feel like there was a hint of truth to what he was saying. And as far as Cristina Mariani, I think she only said one thing the whole entire episode, and it was just her saying hi at the beginning of the show. And then they turned up her mic, but all that was for basically no reason at the end of the day because she didn't end up saying anything else. She just sat there silent. I highly doubt she will get an invite back on the show. You combine that with David Lucas, who is already one of the more hated men in comedy right now, then you got a dead awful duo, and a duo that belongs in dead last on this list. I have Cristina Mariani in last place on this list simply because she didn't say anything this episode. I have David Lucas at number 8 because he was more of an active participant. However, I can see why you would have these two flipped because David Lucas just simply isn't funny. So even when he does participate, it's not like you're getting hits after hits from David Lucas. Coming in at number 7, I have Brian Simpson. Coming in at number 6, I have Yannis Pappas. I have both of these guys right in the middle of the pack here, and they were both on the same episode in episode number 722. I had to go back to this episode and kind of give it a little bit of a rewatch to kind of remember some highlight moments from it. Come to find out, it is exactly kind of what you expect an average episode overall. Brian Simpson looked like he was one of the people that were in the Mothership green room and got a little bit too greened out in the green room, if you know what I'm saying. His eyes were barely open for the duration of the show. Brian Simpson this time around wasn't the most engaging, wasn't the most entertaining guest. He is a great stand-up though. And then I got Yannis Pappas just above him at number 6 because he did try to participate more. It did seem like towards the later stages of the episode, he tried some more stuff out and it was bombing a little bit. But I kind of like that. I kind of like when a comic kind of goes out and tries stuff, and even if it doesn't work, and it's even more funny when things don't work. You'll see with a certain comedian later on in this list, he does a good job of doing that, almost running bits into the ground until they become funny. Some other good Kill Tony guests with this that come to mind are Rich Voss, James McCann as well. All these comedians do a good job of that, and it kind of seemed like Yannis was in that category in this episode, and I think he had a good showing. Some other guys had a little bit more memorable showings on their episode and participated just a little bit more. Coming in at number 5, I have Matt Rife from episode number 725, the show in Nashville in the arena. Now, Matt Rife, his first go around when he was on the show, actually was a very pleasant surprise. He does appeal to a lot of people, and he will draw eyeballs wherever he goes, so he is a great pick to go to these arena shows and to be the guest. I think he kind of deserved this, and I think it's a good chance, and it was a good risk to bring him on here. And I think he did have a couple of good singers throughout this episode. He kept up with the show's pace, but he was a little bit more quiet this go around. Last time, I think, was more willing to give advice to the comedians, was more apt to go back and forth with these open micers. I'm not sure if it was because he was also on panel with another comedian that he was not as likely to do this, but I do think we were shortchanged a little bit in that department. I don't think that's the best that Matt Rife can do there, but he is still a pretty solid guest for the show, and if he is somebody that comes back onto the show, is somebody that should be on as a solo guest. Coming in at number 4, I have Ari Matti from episode number 724. As I read this name off and I see Ari Matti at number 4, I'm having second thoughts here, right? And I'm thinking that I should probably switch out Yannis Pappas at episode number 722 for Ari Matti and kind of do that little switcheroo and have Yannis jump 2 spots to 4 and Ari drop down to 6. But Ari Matti, right, he's not a bad guess, and I think he's a solid complimentary piece to whoever he's on the panel with. He's kind of the antithesis of what we were talking about with Matt Rife earlier. He's not somebody that could stand alone as a solo guest because he doesn't often take risks as a panelist, and he doesn't often take chances with going back and forth with the comedians or really offering up advice. Even though Ari is a seasoned comedian, I think he does have somewhere near like a decade of experience. I think people still view him as this Kill Tony comic. He doesn't really participate in bits or, roasting the comedians, but one thing I will give him credit for is that he did kind of commit to a bit and did a bit with a woman in this episode where they acted out a scene. That particular bit, I think, is something that fits him perfectly. So, I think he has shown progress and he has hit some strides since his first time as a panelist on the show. I think he has improved and I think he's gotten better. Coming in at number 3, we have Tony Caruso, who appeared alongside Matt Rife in episode number 725. Tony Caruso is a new character that he's trying to flesh out, and it worked pretty well, I would say, in the Nashville show. Tony at times gets annoyed with Adam Ray for always asking questions and kind of running bits to the ground because he wants to play that host role so bad, and he wants to kind of be funny and always look for jokes and to look for moments, but sometimes it really annoys Tony, which kind of always makes for a fun dynamic between those two. And he had a really funny continuous bit throughout this episode where he was having an after party at the La Quinta Inn, and at first it wasn't funny, but by the end it was killing and people were laughing their ass off at it. Adam Ray's Tony Caruso was killer. One of the, I would say, lonely standouts from this episode. Adam Ray brings it every time. Coming in at number 2, I have Joe Derosa from episode number 724. Joe Derosa is a killer, man. He was right up there and almost was my guest of the month for June on Kill Tony. He is hilarious. He is a guy that can riff with the comedians. He gives genuine advice, and he also got hammered this episode in a hammered Joe Derosa. A hammered Vile Horrendous is a hilarious combo. He had an emotional moment with a stand-up comedian where he told him, hey, if you need somebody, you can always reach out to me, which is one of those rare sweet moments on the show. But it was immediately brought back down with a joke, which we liked because we don't, this isn't America's Got Talent or anything, but it is nice to see him offer criticism to the comics and then also kind of, be there for emotional support because he's a guy who has been there, he's been in their shoes, he's been an open micer, he knows what it's like. He's a guy who's been doing it for a long time, but it seems like his stock is just continuing to rise over the last couple of years, especially with his appearances on Kill Tony. He had a very popular moment on Story Wars with the Vile Horrendous with Shane Gillis. He's been on Tires. I think he's a writer on Tires as well. He's a guy who I wasn't familiar with before as a casual comedy fan coming into my viewing of Kill Tony, and Kill Tony is a great show for people who are casual comedy fans that want to get into comedy because they introduce you to staples of the game like Joe Derosa. One of the more funny moments was when Ari Matti brought up a saying in his country of Estonia, and Joe just quickly on the draw said, didn't you think it would be more profound than that? Very funny stuff. Joe Derosa gets a silver medal, showing why he is one of the all-time greats when it comes to guests on the show. Coming in at number 1, and it may be because it's just the new kid on the block, but we have first-time guest Jimmy Carr in episode number 721. Jimmy Carr, man, I mean, this is kind of what he does. This is his wheelhouse. This is what Jimmy Carr does. He does crowd work, but he just flames the audience. If you were to make a comedian in a lab that was made to be a panelist on Kill Tony and to pair very well with Tony Hinchcliffe, it would be Jimmy Carr. Jimmy Carr was hell-bent on making these comedians' lives hell, but if you were good or if you showed signs of charisma either during your set or the interview, Jimmy Carr let off the brakes, so to say. He gave you some feedback, he gave you some praise as well, kind of peeled back the curtains to show that he is a swell fella, and he also can dish out some incredible roasts, and was one of the better first-time guests on the show. I mean, you've seen basically two sides of the spectrum when it comes to first-time guests in Kill Tony history. I mean, you see Jimmy Carr, who absolutely smashes it. You see Cristina Marani, who has one of the worst first-time appearances in the show's history. Jimmy Carr, obviously a seasoned veteran. He's going to do way better than Cristina Mariani. Jimmy Carr was the guest of the month of June, and I think that there is no doubt about that in my mind. Listen to the Tray and Treeb Show. New episodes drop once a month on this channel. We will have a new episode next week with the University of Idaho head football coach Thomas Ford. We're going to try to have guests on more often on the show. It's a variety of guests. If you are somebody listening to the show and you want to be on the show, let me know. You know, maybe you're a comedian. You know, maybe you are somebody who can juggle. You know, I don't know. We are taking all comers on the Tray and Treeb Show, post and premature. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.